Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. For those live, good afternoon. And for those watching the replay, good day. And so I welcome you to this installation of Divine Discourses. Today, we are going to be speaking about motivation and inspiration, something that we all can use and access in order to have a fulfilling life. And so let's just jump right in. Thank you for being here today. And let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. All right, so just a little housekeeping up front for those who are live. Most of you, welcome back, are very familiar with these, but for the few who are new, we'll just go over some housekeeping rules. One, rename your video panel so that I know who's here today. And you can rename it in whatever way you want. We've had people on as divine participant, or heart-centered. So whatever you would like me to reference when I'm calling on you during the Q&A, go ahead and rename your video panel to that. And if you want to be anonymous, you can just simply say, here's my name, but I'd like to be anonymous. All right. And in order to do that, there's two different ways. You'll see 3 dots in the right corner of your video panel, or on the participant list, just click on your name and then select more. All right. Also, please keep yourself on mute at all times during the discourse, except when I call on you later on, if you want to be on the recording. Otherwise, we are recording, and to minimize distractions and disruptions, just please stay on mute. Also, on a phone, *6 is to mute and unmute yourself. And then you can locate the reaction icons, and they're useful. They give feedback, non-auditory feedback during the presentation. You have all kinds of options in there. You have dancing, and you have laughing, you have clapping your hands, all kinds. So locate those and feel free to use them throughout. Then, as I mentioned, please send questions. We are going to have a Q&A. Please send your questions during the presentation at the time, and be specific. If you have a question, say, I have a question about, and say what it's about, the topic, and then ask your question. And then later during the Q&A, I will pull those questions up and address those questions. All right. Then please stay and complete the survey at the end. I thank you for your feedback in advance. All of your feedback is very helpful. It helps me to know what is effective for different people, because we all don't have the same styles. Although I'm going to present the information in many different ways of saying it, there may be yet another way. So all of your feedback, or if the way that I presented is coming through, let me know that. So all of your feedback is helpful and will impact further discourses that we will be having. And last but not least, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for this divine discourse. So Divine Variations presents Seed 3, Motivation, Inspiration. Right? And so today's discourse, motivation and inspiration. Are you moved by an internal calling or an external push? Right? So we're going to be talking a little bit about that today, and really breaking down the difference between motivation and inspiration. So it's presented by Divine Variations. Here at Divine Variations, we are all about educational, artistic, and cultural products and services that are all geared to facilitate the transformation, self-realization, and inspiration in your life. Right? That's what all of our offerings are for. You can find us at the Linktree, Divine Variations. Our online store is there. You can book speaking engagements. You can buy books and apparel and many different offerings. So go to our online store that is located on our Linktree. Thank you. Here is our calendar, as I mentioned earlier. Before we go to the calendar, let's get into what we're doing for today. As I said, it's about motivation and inspiration. It's coming out of our seed topics. These seed topics are the main topics that divine variation anchors and speaks to throughout life. And so all of our offerings, we address the universal law, we address divine purpose, and we address forgiveness and releasing trauma, inspiration, creativity, transformation, all of which leads to self-realization, right? In this garden called life. And so today you're at the inspiration motivation topic, and those other ones you can reach if you're live. So this is for the live people. The people who are on replay, you can catch all of those topics on a replay where you found this replay. For those who are live, you have the opportunity to still register for 4 more discourses that we'll be doing. And here's the calendar. And you can find that calendar on the link tree as well. And wherever you connected for this one on the Eventbrite, all of them are uploaded in the Eventbrite. So let's get to it. Today, motivation and inspiration, right? We're going to get into the difference between the two and really breaking it down. So let's do a poll for those who are live, and for those who are listening to the replay. Ask yourself these same questions. Just take note of it for yourself. Are you feeling motivated in your life? Do you have a sense of motivation? Are you moving with a sense of inspiration in your life? Does your life feel inspired? And what is the difference between those two? What is the difference between motivation and inspiration to you? Just want to check in advance. For those who are live, go ahead and take that poll. You know, what is the difference between motivation and inspiration? And just checking in, see what we can vibe off of that's already in the space. All right, thank you for taking that poll. All right, so, you know, I like to begin simply by anchoring the space in a little poetic speaking. And for those who have my book, Atonement, this is what I'm going to be reading from, Atonement. And this first one that I'm going to do today is called Touched, and it can be found on page 88. Let me go ahead and put on my spectacles. Right, so Touched on page 88. Come on now. Thank you. The connection between particles of matter and waves of energy. The realization of oneness and intimacy. The experience of being open and moved internally. Touched. In the language of heart and soul. In the moment of release and letting go. In the essence of joy and amour. Impacted. Spilling over and filling up. Like Mount Vesuvius as it erupts. Expanding every cell and fiber of being, going beyond third dimensional seeing, appearing involuntary yet stemming from choice, the decision to listen to one voice. Impressed with a seal of approval from the depths of the soul, moving together in a harmonious flow. Coming forward in knowledge of self and life, eternally bearing witness to the encounter. Gratified. Pleasing to the touch, inviting more love, satiating like a warm hug, heartened. Balancing passive and active forces, tying the knot of thought and feeling, restoring the divine partnership, remembering. Moved, an instrument for your embrace, revealing together, relating, grace, soul stirring, to be touched. So as you may have noticed throughout those different ways of exclaiming the depths of our movement in the different ways that information reaches out and impacts us and touches us. And so you heard touched, you heard impacted, you heard impressed and gratified, and then remembered and heartened and moved and soul stirring. And so these are those anchoring words and thoughts and vibrations that we move in as we think about motivation and inspiration, right? And so I'm going to share my screen again. And so as we move forward in this divine discourse, first of all, let's anchor in the truth of who we are, right? And in order to have inspiration, in order to feel inspired, we must first know who we are. So we start everything realizing this. We start everything calling this forward. We start everything by acknowledging the truth of who we are. We are divine. We are expressions of the divine. We are channels for the divine, showing up as our life and bringing that forward into every moment. That is who we are. We are divine. And so underneath, within, moving through the foundation of life, it rests on universal laws, right? And so when we think about the universal laws, here are the 7 key laws that undergird all of life and that are relevant in everything that we do, right? And it's important for us to realize this. It's important for us to be aware of this information, you know, in order to really stay inspired. When we move away from this information, we move more into the motivation, right? And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So first, that principle of mentalism, that everything is mind, everything is mental, everything stems from thought, right? So it's the thoughts that we hold that are key. And then there's correspondence, that all of life holds correspondence. It corresponds between the 3 different planes of life, the spiritual, the mental, and the physical. So as we hold thought, that corresponds throughout our whole experience of life. And then the principle of vibration, which simply states that everything is in constant movement and it carries a frequency. Every single thing, our thoughts, our actions, our experience, everything, our body, water, everything is vibration. And then polarity, that our energy, our vibration, our experience, our thoughts hold different poles. There's duality, there's opposites within phenomenal experience, if you will. And so those poles, those opposites can be captured in hot and cold. They can be captured in and out. They can be captured in many different ways. You'll see the polarity of day and night, and everything. So everything in the phenomenal realm is expressed in opposite. It has duality in order to have physicality and expression, right? And so rhythm simply talks about the movement and cycles of life in the phenomenal realm. And so within that polarity, you have the rhythm or the cycles, which you can see throughout the moon, you can see throughout the day, you can see throughout things moving from hot to cold or cold to hot, right? There's that constant movement and cycles. And then we also have the law of consequence or cause and effect, which a lot of people term karma, right? And so the law of consequence simply says that for every cause, there is an effect, and for every effect, there is a cause. And a lot of people might think that there are coincidences or chance, and coincidences or chance are simply when we are unaware of what the cause actually is. The cause might be so far back in our subconscious that we are unaware of it. But everything has a cause, and every single cause has an effect, right? And that cause goes back to thought. So for every effect that we are watching, experiencing, there is a corresponding thought. All right. And then the principle of gender, last but not least. Everything has a masculine and a feminine essence or reality, if you will. And when we say masculine and feminine, we're not talking about male and female, right? We're not talking about the sexes. What we are talking about is energy. And so we're talking about full and empty, passive and active, positive and negative. And positive and negative, it's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It is where positive, it holds the information, right? And then negative receives the information. So the positive actually has all that is necessary, the idea, the pattern, if you will, right? That's the pater, the masculine. And then the matter, feminine, is what brings that into fruition, right? So gender, when you look at the root word, it's all about producing, generating, creating. And so everything in life, in expression, holds gender. All right, so that's going to be undergirding the conversation that we have today. And so within that, let's begin to break down exactly what we are speaking about when we're talking about inspiration and motivation. So first, let's speak about what is motivation. I'm going to first speak about that because what we're really speaking about is inspiration, and we just want to jump in after we speak about both of what they are. So motivation is really when you are moved by an external source. Motivation is more of a pushing, if you will, it's more of a pulling, and it's more of a reaching outside of yourself for something to move you, right? And so it really is about a lot of ways in life that we are taught to look outside of ourselves for information and energy. When you, not to cast any stones, but when you use things like stimulants, like coffee, stimulants, like, whatever that is that you might think you require to get that energy up and going, that's an external source. That is a motivational source. And remember, it's not about right or wrong, good or bad, right? It just is. That is something that's outside of you. That's where motivation comes from. When we're speaking about inspiration, we're talking about an internal calling, an internal energy that is moving you forward, that is calling to be expressed, that is on your heart, in your soul, and is expressing itself through you and carries an energy of, we're going to say, upliftment and expansion. That is inspiration, to be inspired. The breath is inspirational, right? And so when we're talking about inspiration, we're talking about that which is an internal force moving through you and from you. When we're talking about motivation, we're talking about an external force that is moving on you and pushing you or pulling you. All right. So when we're talking about inspiration, just to get in deeper into it, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment, right? And so we want to begin really looking at how it shows up in nature to really get a good sense of inspiration. Look to nature and look at how life is moving. I think about how the birds are just flying through the air, and when they need something to eat, they just go get it. They not fretting. You look at plant life, look at fruit. Oh, fruit is such a source of inspiration. The flavor, it doesn't have to taste so good, but it does taste so good. And it is inspiring, right? Because it's just giving of itself. You think about good music, you think about the setting or rising sun, the inspiration that one gets simply from looking at it, right? The sun is just there giving of itself, providing us with warmth, providing us with life. That's that inspiration that I spoke of, right? Nature is just inspiring when it's unadulterated, when it is left alone and not polluted, if you will. You watch the ocean, the ebb and flow of the tides, and there's something about just sitting next to the ocean and watching it do what it does that is inspiring, and you don't have to add not one thing to it for it to be inspirational. It is self-contained. All of those things that I said, they're self-contained. The taste of a wonderful mango, the sun, good music. And good music comes in nature. When you hear a bird singing, you hear the wind through the trees, you hear the water, you hear even a beating drum coming from nature, the woodpecker on a tree. They're different sounds, and it's all inspirational, right? And so let's take a moment to speak about our natural inclinations and how we get back to really finding that source of inspiration more than motivation, right? Remember, there's nothing wrong with motivation. It can lead you to a place of inspiration. Just like right now, you might identify me as something outside of yourself, though I'm really not, and use this speaking, this talk, this discourse as a source of motivation to lead you to inspiration. And so I invite you to think about your natural inclinations when you are not thinking about responding to any sense of responsibility or obligation. What are you doing naturally? If for a moment, all your bills were met, right? All needs met, all bills paid, and you didn't have to think about what you have to do in order to survive, okay? Because we want to move out of survival to thriving, right? From surviving to thriving. And so within that, let that go, even if it's just for this moment. You can pick that up when we're done with this discourse, if you so choose. I invite you to just leave it over there, right? And let's really begin to move from a sense of inspiration. What would that feel like? Capture that feeling. What would that feel like? What would it look like? What would it sound like? Right? And so I'm going to walk us through a meditation. I'm going to share my screen again and walk us through this meditation so that we can actually capture what that looks like, feels like, sounds like, right? And so feel free to close your eyes as we walk through this process. Take a deep breath with me. And as you release on the breath, feel free to just let out a sound if you choose. Let out that ah or that om or that Take another breath with me. And another. As we just clear our minds and allow our attention to come here to this moment right here, right now, anchoring the truth of who we are. We remember that we are a divine expression of the Most High, of the creator of all life, by whatever name that we call that source. We know that we did not bring forth ourselves into life, so we do have a creator, and we call upon that now, that divine idea that our creator had as us. And we call that forth into expression now. And so with this calling, we tap into our heart and our soul, that place of purity of expression. And we call forth a thought. What is that divine thought that is to be expressed as our life? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it move like? What does it look like? We call that forth now. That divine, inspirational thought that inspires, that uplifts, that expands, that unfolds as our life. That which, as we give it, as we tap into it, as we express it, it comes forth to bless ourselves and all who are impacted by it, all who are touched by it. We bring that forward now. Even if we, in this now moment, cannot hear it, we know that we are receiving it now, and we allow it to express in our life in greater and greater ways as we move forward. And so we give thanks, knowing that we have received a greater expression of inspiration, a greater expression of our divine expression. And we allow it to come forth, inspiring our experience. We give thanks and we allow it to be. And it is. Thank you. Thank you for joining me on that journey. Just breathe yourself here in this moment. Take that grounding breath, if you will. And just go ahead and say, Om. And just let it in a little clap. And we are here. We are here. We are here. And so moving forward, just let that anchor you. Let that move through your expression, right? As we continue in this conversation. And so as that which you have captured, that energy, that vibration, that knowing, that calling, as you have captured it, I want you to record. Hopefully you brought some paper to the discourse and something to write with, an instrument. If that's your tablet, your phone, or pen and paper, go ahead and write down these 5 life areas, right? Spiritual, creativity, relationships, health, and finances. Write those down. You're going to begin looking at those and really infusing them with this inspirational tone that has come through today. You're going to begin infusing them and really looking at how your calling, this inspirational vibration that you have been called to release, is released through those. You're not asking how. You're looking at the different ways that you can begin to do this. All right. The how comes with the what, and the what you just brought through, right? Infusing your life in those different ways. And so through that infusion, I ask you to make some commitments. Commit to picking 3 of those areas in the next 30 days and 1 relationship, right? 1 key relationship, whether you're in a partnership, whether it's intimate partnership, your life partnership, or your business partners, right? Look at those partnerships, or if it's a parental relationship with your children, or your relationship with your parents, or your siblings, any kind of familiar relationships, or if it's your neighbors, right, or your colleagues. Just 1 relationship over the next 30 days and in 3 different areas of your life, right? And look at how you can infuse that energetic tone into those different areas, into your relationships, into your life. And then just record, step back and watch how the infusion of that inspirational tone impacts your whole life, right? That is the challenge. That is our commitment that we're making over the next 30 days. right? And so really looking at that and looking at the ways. And so I will just offer this, how, in the area of, let's say you picked health, right? And let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a moment. Let's say you picked health as one of the areas that you want to look at, and how you can infuse that inspirational tone. Look at the vibration, right? We go to that law of vibration. Look at the vibration of the foods that you eat, because food carries vibration. And look at the choices that you're making for the food. Are you looking for comfort, or are you looking for that food to motivate you? Or is the food that you're eating serving to help support the vibration that you're walking in, right? So if you get up in the morning, and this is where the spiritual area of your life, you get up in the morning, you do your meditation, you bring in that tone, that inspirational tone that your higher self wants to anchor for this day, right? And as you bring in that inspirational tone, as you go to nourish and sustain this physical organism known as our body, our temple, right? As you go to sustain it, or the choices that you're making in the food, sustaining a high vibration, or are they grounding you into something lower, a lower frequency, right? So begin to really pay attention to the frequency of the food that you're eating. And that goes across liquids and the minerals and, everything, the vegetation, all the goodies that we consume. And that's not to say that every once in a while, you might end your day with a little something every once in a while, not a regular basis. How often do you do that? Or if you're out at a celebration, you have a little extra treat. But then we also get to begin to see how we can make those treats and things something that really uplifts our vibration, right? We get to begin to overhaul our life, if you will. And so I just gave you two different examples, right? One with the health of really looking at how the things that we feed our body temple upholds a high vibration, supports the high vibration that we brought in through inspiration. How does that food support that inspiration? And then looking at how we're grounding ourselves in the morning, how we're coming in and inspiring ourselves in the morning. Are we taking a moment to meditate? Are you taking a moment to simply give thanks for the day that you are receiving? Are you anchoring the thought and your intention of what you came to give? Are you calling forth from out of yourself inspiration, right? And so those two different areas of life, health and spiritual, in different ways to really move that forward from within yourself. All right. And so let me share my screen again. As we are looking at those commitments, I encourage you, email me. You have the email from the, when you signed up for the course, that email me and let me know how those commitments are coming along, right? And so within that, I'm going to offer another poetic thought, if you will. So this time, oh yeah, that's a nice one. Let's do It's Amazing. It's amazing. All right, let me stop sharing the screen as I do this poetic thought for you, as I give this poetic thought. It's amazing. Awed by the beauty of life, your tenacious spirit to climb higher. Every twist and turn pulling me on. No plateau for rest, no diving board from which to digress. I clear one hurdle, there appear two more. With each successive leap, I gather momentum to rise above the ground. At one stage, a completion. At the other, an admittance. Admission into a higher realm. The door is open. I need but step through. The way to move forward is by giving and being a new. Shedding the robe of the previous thought, a whole new robe takes shape, one that is fueled by the fire of this new thought I now embrace. In order to move forward, I must become what is becoming. Trailblazer indeed. Oh, that you could hear me as I step forward declaring our divinity, having released the idea that I am not he, the one. Oh, how you love me. It's amazing. It's amazing how you love me. It's amazing. It is truly amazing when we tap into inspiration, when we let go of that need to be motivated, and we take on our power, knowing who we are. It is amazing. And so I invite you to tap in, send those questions in. What are your questions? I see we do have 3 already. And I'll take those 3, because those have been organically generated. So I will take those 3 questions right off the top. Looking at this first one here. Yes. Okay. So how do I maintain my source of inspiration? And so, this question, the how question, is always linked to the what, because when I know what, I know how. When I know what is being called for, that answers, okay, how do I do it? But I have to be clear on the what. And so I take you back to what is inspiration, right? And so inspiration is that breath of life. Inspiration is that energetic, that vibration of the truth of who we are, right? We are divine. And so inspiration is the breath of the divine moving through us. And so how do I stay connected to a source of inspiration moving as me? It's by staying connected to the thought of who I actually am, right? And not tuning into what the world is saying and doing, but really tuning into who am I and what do I say, right? How do I accept my divinity? It's really about accepting our divinity. And so that is, I invite you into that deeper. Stay tuned into that divine flow as your life. And that's how you stay tuned into inspiration, right? And if you find yourself tapping into motivation, tap into it knowing that it is leading you to stay tuned into your divine inspiration, right? Thank you for that question. Thank you. All right, this next question. So, are you saying that coffee is bad for us? No. There is no good or bad. There's no right or wrong, right? So we go back to that law of polarity. We go back to the law of rhythm. Everything moves in cycles. So there is no good or bad, right or wrong. It's all about your intention. What are you intending to stay tuned into? What do you want to continuously express, right? And so how does coffee or any other stimulant, support that? Does it keep you in a place of being addicted to it and dependent on it for feeling energetic, right? And how do you feel when you don't have it, right? Versus how do you feel when you take that breath and really tap into yourself? So I invite you right now, take a real breath with me. And allow it to move through you. Allow it to cleanse out old ideas. Allow it to anchor you right now. Can you feel that? Can you feel that energy? Because I feel it. I'm tapped in, and I share that with you right now, that you may feel yourself tapped into your source. Okay. Not my source. When at the end, we all stem from the great creative source. And then you have a higher self that taps you into that source. And so I invite you to tap into that without aid of an external, such as coffee. So no, coffee's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just an intermediary, and you don't need an intermediary, right? And I don't know that it is an intermediary to your higher self. So I'm not saying that, right? It is something different than what we're speaking about. So coffee is irrelevant to what we're speaking about, actually. All right. So thank you for bringing forth the opportunity for me to speak to that more deeply. Thank you. All right. Last question for today. So it's about community, and and the word they said, do I recommend that we join in community to do this kind of work, And so I don't necessarily have any recommendations or suggestions. What I have is an offering, and I offer this to anyone that it resonates with. Everything that I'm saying, take it on and see where it resonates, right? And if it doesn't resonate with your heart and soul, if you don't feel it within you as truth for you, then leave it alone, right? Don't just take my word for anything. Try it on, see how it lives as you, right? And so I find that community is supporting. I find that gathering in spaces with like-minded individuals is a support for me in what I am doing, right? It doesn't become about what the community itself is doing. It becomes about the community is expressing what I'm expressing. And I join in that, right? I join in that expression and finding ways to expand what is naturally expressing through my life. So yes, I do find community to be supportive ways of carrying out this work, of living in an inspired life and expanding the expression of the Most High, of our higher selves in our lives. So thank you. All right, thank you for those questions. Thank you for that opportunity to expand what I'm saying. Let me share my screen again. And as we wrap up here, my final thoughts, bringing forth, really looking at being called forward by our hearts and souls, by our higher self, right? Being called forward to rise up in our experience and expression, to rise above that physical, mental, and emotional feeling, or physical, emotional, and mental states. Sitting on top of that, releasing our heart expression and really beginning to speak forth the will of God, the will of our higher self, the will of our creator, in whatever name we call that, right? And really beginning to be able to have that true vision as we come forth, knowing who we are, right? And allowing this human experience to simply be a way of expressing the Most High. Right. So those are some of my final thoughts, and really beginning to understand what this life is all about, really beginning to understand that we are here to reveal our hearts and souls, to reveal the creator within, right? And inspiration is necessary in order to do that. Motivation can never do that, because that's an external factor, right? And so we're going to have to tap into an inspirational source. We're going to have to tap into inspiration itself and live as that in order to be the channels, in order to be the vessels for our higher selves, for our creator to express in the earth plane. And so I call you forth into that now, into greater ways of being that, in greater ways of expressing that, by simply anchoring the thought, you are divine, and calling that forward. Yes, indeed. Are you with me? Yes. Give me some thumbs up. Yes, yes. Some claps. Yes. Some snaps. Yes. All of that. You're with me. Yes, yes. And if you need more information, hit me up. Hit me up, right? And if this is, not enough, this is just a discourse, right? This is just a seed that needs to be planted in order to sprout and grow fruit for the harvest. This is just a seed thought, right? And so as we move forward, we're going to do a survey in just a moment, right? So, but as we move forward, I want to thank you. Thank you for being here, and, technology likes to do different things, but thank you for being here. If you don't have the book that I read from today, you can go on my online store to book speaking engagements, to book courses and workshops and retreats, and also to purchase my books. I have Atonement, and I also have I Create, and It's Good, which are 2 children's books. We really are called to keep our children tapped into this conversation so that they stay remembering, because they come in remembering. And we can help them stay locked into that. And these 2 books really do that. I Create helps anchor the thought, remembering that they are divine creators coming forth from the divine creator. And then It's Good helps them stay locked into the fact that they and what they create is good. Just as God saw what it created as good, we and what we create are good. Create, not just make up what we create. And so I invite you to go on Divine Variations. You can find it on our Linktree, our store. It's a Square store. And so I invite you to tap in even deeper with me. We can be in community together. I offer these discourses. I also offer workshops where we take 3 topics at one time, look at how they are interwoven, right? And get into a little deeper. And then I offer the courses. And in the courses, we go into 5 topics at a time and really get in deep. And the retreats are where we just go over all the topics and we go into our lives, and people get to really look at the specifics that are coming up in their lives. And then I offer one-on-one coaching as well. In that one-on-one coaching, we're able to really go in, look at those thoughts, tease out those thoughts, develop processes of observation and releasing, and really get into your individual situation. And the goal of coaching, and I invite people who are interested in coaching to take on and make a commitment for 6 to 12 months, right? And in that time, if you do the work, right? If you do what is being offered, by the end of that 12 months, you have no need for me as a coach anymore. And then we can join in spiritual community in a completely different way. And you find out at the end of coaching what that is, right? And so I offer that to you. I thank you for your time and presence here today. And I just bid you complete peace and blessings as you move forward, living an inspired life. Thank you.